one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for our last meeting, November 15th.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I want to throw one thing. It was kind of a minor thing. Wasn't it Class B for the soccer championship?
Yes, class D, no B, not B, D, D as in dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, Ed made a motion to approve with the modification. Second. Oh, and Mark seconded it, so all those in favor of approving the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Next are department reports. And Dan, you want to go?
My podium there. So fire department's up to 152 calls so far this year. It's above average for us. We usually average about 120, 130. Last year we had 200 calls, which was our record year. Don't think we'll hit that number this year. I hope not. Last Monday's snowstorm, we ended up going out 9 times throughout the day. It was a full day for some of us that made most of the calls, so didn't really get a lot of work done that day. Recently we went on several public events. We had our pancake breakfast with Santa, well attended. We had about 150 plus people that attended. A lot of kiddos got their pictures with Santa. Always a good feel event. We did our annual toll road fundraiser. I think we raised about $1,700 alone just in toll road. So it's a really big, it's our biggest fundraiser actually for the year for our auxiliary. In fact, our auxiliary, they bought some more tables and chairs. And that's what some of those funds go towards. We're going to be retiring our old chairs. Those are actually from the mid-1980s. If you've ever been in our station, the old brown chairs, we're going to donate those, I believe, to the biker church in South Monmouth. We're going to be replacing them with those plastic white chairs that fold out. We did a toy drive at the Dollar General store. That was a 4-hour event on that same Saturday. And then we went out and did the holiday parade at Winthrop. So it's quite a full day, first Saturday in December. And then we also, the week prior, we participated in the tree lighting ceremony at the Monmouth Museum. Handing out chocolate. This past week, both Assistant Chief Pollard and I, we met with a rep from Verisk for the ISO rating. That was quite a task. Meeting with him was fine. We passed the flying colors as far as our stations, our trucks, all our paperwork was in order. We had to produce training records, post-test records, pump test records, a couple other things. And then I had to fill out several forms. Some of them were like 9 pages long with information about the stations, the trucks, equipment. Our dispatch just got sent a, I think it was 3-4 page form to fill out for dispatch, because that's like 10% of our score. So we're in that process of doing the review. Apparently I did this back in 2015. Didn't realize I had done that. But he brought me up on his computer, said, "Oh yeah, Dan Wright, Fire Chief, 2015. So I must have filled out the form, but I know they weren't as extensive as they are 8 years later. But I'm hopeful that we're going to lower our rating, but we won't know. It takes several months for them to get it all into the system, and then report back to us, you know, if we at least maintain our current score. But where I'm hopeful is we're going to do the tests, but we can't do that till good weather. So it'll be next summer. We do the water test to show that we can pump so much water in so many minutes. The gentleman encouraged us to do it because he says often you can lower your score if you pass that test. So we're pursuing it. We're getting there, but it's going to take several more months. The last thing I have is just the little update on the Monmouth Firehouse Museum. As you know, the building got moved. That's just temporary. Hopefully you guys are okay with where it's sitting, because it's going to sit there till April. We tried to put some tape up because it's a little encroaching on the sidewalk. I thought about maybe putting a few cones out, maybe taping it a little better, just to make it more visible, so somebody's not walking with their head in the cell phone and bump their head into the ivy that's sticking out. So that's temporary. The next step is we gotta do the excavation of the old foundation. We've got, contractor, on hold right now. Tomorrow night I'll be going to the planning board. I've already filled out an application with them. We've got the permit by rule already in place through DEP. We're just waiting to go through planning board for the final blessing. Once we get that, then we'll get the contractor in there, hopefully sooner than later, because it is a hazard having that exposed with the foundation, the old holes in the floor and whatnot. I'd like to try to get that cleaned up. So I'm gonna go tomorrow night and present that, kind of a safety hazard. So I'm hoping to maybe get a waiver on trying to at least get that portion done, especially where we already got DEP's approval. But planning board was kind of a last minute thing that I didn't know I had to go through, but we're going through that process now, where we hopefully we'll get their blessing. If not, then it's gonna sit that way and we'll just tape off a larger area and wait till spring. So we'll knock on wood, see what happens tomorrow night. That's all I got. Do you guys have any questions? Good, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Report you have in front of you is for the months of October and November. Month of October was a busy month, as everybody's aware. We ended up with 2 warrant arrests, 2 OUI arrests, and arrest.
Good night.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know who the second one.
Yeah. We had 1 arrest for a bail violation, 1 arrest for a violation of a protection from abuse order and criminal mischief. Criminal summons for leaving the scene of a PD crash, 4 criminal summonses for operating after suspension. Criminal summons for attaching false plates, and 1 criminal summons for speeding at 85 and 45. November, it slowed down, the calls were up, but the arrests and summonses slowed down. We had 1 arrest for criminal threatening with a dangerous weapon. 1 summons for driving to endanger, and 2 criminal summonses for operating after suspension. Officer Zach Roy is scheduled to attend the 45th BLEPI, which is the Basic Law Enforcement Training Program, which starts January 15th. And this program training lasts for 18 weeks. So during this 18-week period, we'll be going back to our old schedule, where we will not be covering the road from 2:30 till 6 o'clock in the morning. Those will be open to call outs. I just wanted to make you folks aware of that for the first 3.5 months of the year. We'll be back to our old shifts. On December 3rd, we held our first annual multi-agency Christmas party at the Fishing Game. Both the Monmouth and Winthrop Police Departments, we had 54 people in attendance. All appeared to have a good time. Well called, sir, so all appeared to have a good time. I'd like to thank the Fishing Game for allowing us to use that facility for this event. It made things a lot easier having it a wide open space to work with. Past Sunday and Monday, Officer Bachman, along with Officer Delaney from Winthrop, escorted the Wreaths Across America from Columbia Falls to Groton, Connecticut. They stayed overnight in Ellsworth Saturday night, because the lineup started at 4:30 Sunday morning. And ended up staying over in night into Monday morning. And then when they left Groton at 8:30 Monday night, they ended up going over to Officer Delaney's parents' house in Rhode Island and spending the night there, and then coming back yesterday morning. All our officers now are presently working to complete their year-end training through Derigo Safety, and their company based out of Auburn, Maine. We also, on the 12th, we had training for both Winthrop and Monmouth in the use of Narcan, the deployment of Narcan. And, so we'll be carrying Narcan in our cruisers starting January 1st, it's state law that all law enforcement carry Narcan in their cruisers, so this is the mandatory training that we had to go through, and we're all certified to carry it and administer it now. All officers from Monmouth and Winthrop will be receiving training through University of Maine at Augusta. The Community Policing Institute starting January 15th. The training will last approximately 15 weeks and is done online. Cost of this course is $800 per student. Half of the tuition is being paid by the Harold Alphon Center for the Advancement of Maine's Workforce. The remaining cost will be paid for by the town of Monmouth and the town of Winthrop. I think that's a important thing for all officers to receive this community policing training. I went through it back in the mid-90s. It was a lot different back then because it was classroom time, where now they can sit in their cruisers on their laptops and do their training online or on duty, which makes it a lot more palatable. Not having to run into Augusta for one night a week for this course, but it's a tremendous opportunity for the ladies and gentlemen of the PDs, and for the community in general, because they'll all be, when they get done, they'll be certified, doing what they basically do now, just they'll have the certificate to show their involvement in the community. I've also included some of the comparisons. You're gonna start seeing on these charts now that we've been online with Spillman since June 1st of 22. You're gonna be starting to see some of the percentages are more accurate because you've got a year's worth of history to compare them to. So you can see a lot of the numbers are up. There are some that have dropped. But this kind of gives you an idea of where we're at right now with complaints in Monmouth. What ones are the hot complaints of the year and what ones aren't.
Chief, what's the difference between a traffic stop and a traffic violation?
A stop is just a stop. It may be a written warning or a violation. They actually get ticketed.
Okay.
And be 100% honest with you and upfront, it could be a coding error as well. How the dispatch enters it.
For everyone not looking at this, but listening to us, it's just interesting to note that traffic stops are up the same time last year, almost double. And traffic violations are about the same. Which is kind of what we ask folks to do, is to remind people to slow down and be reasonable, but not necessarily hit them with a ticket.
Correct.
Comment real quick. People on Main Street are very happy with all these violations. So very happy. It's been effective.
Thank you.
Question?
Thing the chief left out today, me and him attended the academy today. They were doing a career day. They invited us to go to a luncheon and a presentation by veterans. We did a veterans group, so we attended that and had some lunch with some student members, I believe, and the ones they let sit with us.
Yeah.
On the Tax collection, we're still looking and we're looking because we're trying to make the applicant that we chose work. She's got some family issues she's trying to get through, just trying to see if we can come up with an accommodation until those family issues have. So we're working through that, but we don't have, just in case you're wondering why that's sitting there. And then as Doug mentioned, I spoke with Wendy Dennis today about the dam, Anabesicook. We did put $5,000 in the budget for this year, because as you recall, 2 years ago, we put 10,000 to do an assessment on each of those dams. And then Cocknoagan, we diverted all of it to that one because that one had the problem. So we did put 5,000 in there. So we have that. So I've already talked to the engineer about doing the original assessment we were going to do. Wendy would like to take part and maybe include some from the Anabesic Lake Association, looking at the overall effectiveness of that dam. It's clear that the gate spillway is inadequate the way that it works. She has charts showing it's almost impossible for our to maintain the water level as it should be. It just doesn't have the capacity to either be lowered fast enough or raised fast enough, or all of the in between. So it's constantly out of the ideal zone, either too high or too low in drought years. The last few has obviously been the high water. So we're going to work on that. Hopefully I'll try to add as much professional work as I can with the 5,000 that we have when we get the engineers out there. And we'll see what that report has, and then maybe going into the budget, if we have some idea what that is, maybe we'll be looking at trying to see what you folks might want to do going into next year, because it's probably going to take some amount of work. Either we need to add a gate, which is probably the least expensive or major project to kind of replace the boarding so that it can actually be adjusted, 6 inches here or a foot here, depending on what's going on. Or maybe an additional spillway needs to be built or something like that, which would be more expensive, but we don't know at this point. So that's kind of the update. We'll be bringing more to you on that as we know moving forward. I think that's all I had for now, unless anybody has any.
Thank you for meeting with her. There was an explosion on Facebook this past week because of, 4 inches of rain
Right.
in one day raises the water level. And there's just, we've had so much rain, there's no place for it to go. And of course, because we artificially lowered Cocknoagan all summer long, water levels were not in control because it was flowing straight out of Cocknoagan. So there were a couple of instances where we had a rainstorm and people stopped it away. It was like pickup sticks. The docks were washing around the lake because, I think early May, we had one instance where the water level rose 28 inches in 2 days. In fact, we've got one person who's rebuilding their cabin with a foundation and an additional couple feet of elevation because the water came up to the first floor, which had never happened before.
You probably told me that one of his neighbors had to retreat in the sea once.
Oh, yeah. It was.
And
It
they're
was
really-
away.
I feel bad for the lakefront people owners.
And noticed the bridge was closed again because of the high water.
Yeah.
And so the water was still touching it.
That's a road was closed yesterday.
The Wagon Road Bridge. They still have the signs up, but people aren't paying attention.
There's a well-traveled path around the sign.
Oh, yeah.
We've been sitting down there and stopping people who go around the signs. Matter of fact, one individual was summoned yesterday for failing to obey the traffic control rules.
Well, I went down
Also
there
have poor
and
attitude.
I won't say that.
I went there just to see how bad it was. I didn't go, but I walked out to take a look, and it was a couple inches above the bottom beam. Pushing laterally on the support beams. The water was,
About 6 inches this morning.
was it? Yeah. So, it seemed like all the other the Topsy watershed has got the ability to make room for extreme events, all the other lakes except for Endeavour.
Yeah.
So, Combahee, they kind of draw it down starting in September, and it's got plenty of extra capacity, but the water just can't get there. over the dam. So,
And our board system there is very manual. There's no pulley system or anything where they could use a truck to try to haul them out when they're under pressure. So there isn't any way to do it without putting employees, basically safety at risk, to stand there and try to pull these out with all that pressure. And you just can't do that. And it's also too far from the shore to use like an excavator bucket or anything like that. You can't reach. So it's really a manual process. And that's one of the faults of the board system there, is that it's too far away from the shore to use equipment.
yeah, I wonder though, if there is some sort of, you know, mechanical means you could use if you engineered it properly to remove the boards emergency way.
Like the Woodbury Pond Dam has a crank spillway like we did on Cockawagga, but it has boards on each end, and they have a pulley system built up with steel beams over it,
Yeah.
and they can do it that way without, endangering somebody,
Yeah.
and it also has the, you can pull on it with a pulley, obviously makes it easier to get it out.
Yeah.
So yes, there are ways to do it, we just have to see how much we need and what the best solution is, and what we can afford.
And-
All those things.
We might actually be able to go to the folks in Winthrop too, because they've got half the lake. So whatever it costs, we could certainly go, and the folks in Winthrop, would be enjoying a bit of that. I mean, technically,
Share the cost.
I mean, we've talked to them, but I mean, they get just as much, I mean, their docks were floating away too.
There's 6 lakes that drain into Anabesco. You're coming from all the way from, Dorsey through, Maranico. And then there's Barry Dexter Wilson, and then there's Cottonwood. So I think there's an awful lot of water comes there and then goes into Cottonwood.
Well, the good news is that means it flushes out pretty quickly. So all of those out I used to have when I was a kid have tamped down quite considerably because it gets a pretty good turnover. But if this is the way it's gonna go with, giant rainstorms all at once, then we're gonna need to adjust something.
Dave,
I just wanted to encourage you to take a look at the report that was done 5 or 6 years ago on that dam, when they had to put visqueen down on the lake bed, on the stream bed, and cover it with sandbags. That was a temporary fix, and it was only a temporary fix for 4 or 5 years. It's been 5 or 6 years. That dam at that point was right before failure. So we're getting right back to that again. So by keeping those boards or that whole dam in place, you're just going over something that's potentially failure rate is very high. So there's a report, I saw it, I read it. Take a look at it and see what they recommended back then and compare it to what the engineer is gonna recommend this time.
do you remember who did it?
No, not off the top of my head.
I do remember when the last time we did a giant drawdown or refaced the dam was probably in the 90s, I'd say. And
This was done under full water. They dove and put the
Yeah,
biscuit
yeah.
down and put the sandbags in. Herb would know the guy's name, but it's on the report.
Yeah.
You can find it.
so back in the 90s, when they added some,
Boards.
well, they redid the sluice gate and they thickened the dam with concrete. And I remember, this was back when I was a kid, maybe in my 20s. I remember we drew the lake down to the point where they couldn't get any lower. It was, mud flats, all the way out to the original.
I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah. What they did as part of that, when they got into the dam, was that there were still some original wooden timbers that were the foundation of that dam. So that was back in the 90s,
They hold up amazingly well underwater.
as long as they don't freeze.
I've seen some dams up north that
Yeah.
they drain and the old dams are still there.
Yeah.
Wood wrapped in like fencing, wire, and they look great. But underwater, they just don't deteriorate.
Well, that's the situation there. And I'd be curious to know what the engineer, when they do a survey, we'll ask them to do a comprehensive survey so we know we're not just putting a Band-Aid on a problem.
Next, select board reports. The only thing I've received a letter again from, the Spirit of America. Asking us to pick somebody, that we would dedicate the town report to and, make a Spirit of America person.
I did get asked to relay from the plan meeting. And I already talked to them about this. They were concerned about the calendar being updated. Moving forward into January, there was nothing on it, just hadn't been done yet. And Justin and I already had that conversation. And they had issues that night of the planning board meeting, getting in the punch code on the door was not functioning. They put a new battery in it. Battery I took out tested fine. So I don't know what exactly was wrong, but I think they ended up using a key for one of the alternate doors to get in, but.
Yeah,
You've used it since then and it worked fine.
Well, I know, I can't say it works fine. It was, I'm not sure if it's dark, I mean, right there, step over. I'm not sure I was punching in the right numbers.
Yep.
For a while, and then I got a flashlight and
It worked.
it worked.
Yeah, but the numbers are supposed to be lit. Once you touch the first
Yeah.
button,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be lit and they weren't.
Right.
So there is something wrong with that.
Yep.
That, that
Got
whole
it
mechanism.
on board. I got in there.
I got in today to
Yeah.
smell the kerosene.
and stuff.
Even like tonight, we were up there, you had to get out of your car and go up to the door because you couldn't see
Oh, yeah,
the sign in the window, in the
Yeah.
door window.
exactly. This close, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing, so let's see. On to public comment. No public comment. Then, we're gonna go and have a public hearing. To consider changes to the planning board and the field board fee schedule.
So these are recommended by the planning board. They came from, me from Steve, he requested me to put on here. Maybe Dave can speak to them. I don't know if he was there, but they're more straightforward. I think they're a little more in line with, communities around us. And it also seems to limit at least the way I read this, it seems to limit the use of the escrow function as from administrative side and from our auditing side is very much appreciated if they stop using that altogether, but it looks like they've moved away from that to some extent.
Big time.
Yeah, with this form, so. They looked reasonable to me compared to what I know of our neighbors. I think that's where they go for the
We
numbers.
copied it from from the neighbors.
So this requires a public hearing. It's been posted for the 14 days according to the ordinance. So you can act on it if you want to at this meeting.
I read through them. I was trying to compare because I found the old ones. I guess I must have left them on my desk, the old ones and the new ones, but the old ones are written totally different than the new ones. So there wasn't any that you could put side by side and see where they changed to, because I went on tomorrow's meeting and found the old ones on there. Because it's on tomorrow's meeting for you guys, for the planning board. It was hard to compare old to new because they weren't even written remotely the same, but this is much clearer and concise for sure.
We did it because of the only 2 days that the code officer was in the office.
Yeah,
So, when you're going from 5 down to 2, you needed something a little clearer
oh, yeah,
to understand.
yeah, yeah.
That was our goal, at least that was my goal in that meeting.
And, for me, I think that it's much easier to read, it's much clearer, it's concise, and I don't have a problem making a motion to approve the, changes to the planning board and appeals board fee schedule.
Second.
So the motion by Chris, a second by Ken to approve the changes to the planning board. And appeals board fee schedules. All those in favor? Thank you. Next, to consider the Department of Public Works Director cooperative agreement with the town of Winthrop.
So as I said, as I warned you in one of my updates, that once Anthony and I and Matt had a chance to discuss something, that we bring something for you to consider in this regard. Effectively, the agreement you have in front of you is the agreement we have with Winthrop for the police agreement, just in reverse. So it's exactly the same as Paul or the chiefs, but his has it written as he's a Monmouth employee who is serving Winthrop, and this one is the opposite. So he's a Winthrop employee who would be serving us in capacity as the Public Works Director. The way they're drafted, it's a 1-year agreement that sort of automatically renews pending a review by the two town managers of the employee's performance. But there's a 30-day out clause on this contract at any time. So if there was a point that we didn't want to do this for whatever reason, whether it wasn't working or we just go in a different direction, it just requires 30 days notice back to Winthrop, and then he goes back to Winthrop and we don't have to pay them anymore for the time that he didn't serve for the remainder of that month. I don't think there's really anything, I think that covers it, but if you read something in there you want to question about,
Could you give us an outline or the rationale behind the percentage responsibility of compensation?
yes. So the percentage that you see in there, that's a good question, Ken, I should have mentioned that. It shows that he's gonna, that we are essentially picking up 55% under this agreement. That is done as basically as a first year because of the unknown and and he's also aware of who the town employees are. He knows that 2 of them have the ability to retire at pretty much any moment. So he's trying to give himself some more time over here, at least in the first year, so he can get acclimated to what we need. And then if there does happen to be vacancies, it would give him time to try to acclimate new people. He knows that if either of those 2 people leave, they are the oldest serving town employees, and that there isn't a lot of experience or depth beyond that. So he's trying to make sure that he has enough time to do Monmouth fair, and so that Winthrop is completely understanding of what they would be giving up, that he'd be over here more than over there in the first year. So that's the idea behind that. It would be, the 3 of us had agreed that we would reevaluate that after that first year to see what would be an appropriate service level between the 2 towns. So that's the idea behind that at this point.
When does it become effective?
Under this agreement, I think that the date is, I left this one blank with the chief. We had a date. Right now, this is blank. It's pending when you approve it. Anthony and I, who's the town manager over there, we would set a date that we thought appropriate for it to move forward. Under the agreement right here, we have enough money in the current budget through July 1st for any of that cost. It would basically be the equivalent. So we don't have any concern budgetary wise, so we could start it whenever was mutually convenient.
Would there be some savings into the next fiscal year
Yes,
if it works ended?
yes.
And how about vehicles? Who's supplying what vehicles?
So under this contract right now, he has a vehicle in Winthrop, which is primarily his. It's a F-250, I believe, or maybe a 350. It does have a plow on it and a sander on it. He would primarily be using that vehicle, and it would be similar to the arrangement we have for the police chief, where because Winthrop is providing the vehicle, we would provide the fuel and maintenance of that vehicle while he's using it in that capacity.
You would be using our town.
No, he would be using his Winthrop pickup truck when he's he would be using that, and we would be putting fuel and taking care of the maintenance as our payment for using their vehicle. Again, it's a similar arrangement that we have with the police chief's car.
Even though Winthrop is I don't know, like square miles or, now, the mileage for road in Winthrop. But it would seem with a bigger town center and community, it would seem like, that would require more of his, but maybe not, I don't know, more of his focus.
His explanation to, their town manager and me when we were meeting was that he feels that he has experienced personnel at both, in the foreman position in Public Works and at his transfer station. That he feels they can run that operation with, less than normal input on his behalf, I guess is the way, I'm not sure how to phrase that, but what I'm trying to say, he feels confident in the staff that he has, that they can complete the work over there with his attention being divided.
Is there any interest in putting out posting the position to see what's out there right now? Because as you know, you never know what you're gonna get, whether there's somebody out there interested. And, you know, using the 30 days, if we did find somebody of our own, I mean, I kind of am interested to see who's out here looking. Is there any interest in that?
I'd be open to it. I mean, I think we need to, you know, keep our ear to the rail for any opportunity. How many, do you know, Justin, how many other positions, similar positions are open? I know in sort of the facilities management, construction industry right now, people are pretty expensive. There's probably still a shortage of people with experience, especially. Are there other municipalities looking for public works directors?
I don't know the number to that right now. I would
Yeah.
say that if you want to try to get somebody and we want to post this, to raise the current salary pretty significantly. I think that we've been grossly underpaying what public works directors get paid. So if we want to do that, I'm happy to do it. But if you want to get somebody who we might want for the long term, we probably should consider a pretty good investment in the salary of that position to get people to apply.
Considering the turnover that we've had in that position, and we all know we're never gonna have another Herbie, that doesn't exist really, I think, anymore, but if we wanted to find somebody that was gonna invest their career and life here, I don't know that that'll happen, but we were surprised with who we got for transfer station, you know, and we were really, because I had heard nothing but praise for the people that we have at the transfer station, and I've been happy seeing them weekly, and you know, and seeing what they do to help people. So you never know who's out there looking at that particular time that you might throw a net over, you know, so.
Is it safe to assume the salary that he collects in Winthrop is significantly more than what the salary was being collected in Long?
He makes significantly more than I do. I'm being like, yes.
But I think that, you know, knowing that we've got the potential to have 2 open positions, I mean, how do you manage that? I mean, that's the other thing. So even if we don't find somebody that is a candidate for the director, perhaps there's somebody that might fit the bill for the spots that are retiring, you know, so I guess it kind of opens up that information, because when are they set to supposedly one for sure retire?
One for sure, you know, by the end of winter, I would say, and the other one we're not sure at this point, but he's certainly eligible to.
So, and you know, I already received comments about the wing of the plow creating giant furrows on people's lawns again. I mean, I realize that the ground's not frozen, but you see it here, and you go into other towns and you're not seeing it. So how those wings are set, I think needs to be addressed. And I'm definitely not a plow girl because I hated plowing my own driveway, but I think that obviously somebody needs to look into that, because people already came to me about it again this year, so.
Which I think is one of, you know, it's just a small example. It's important, you know, whichever way you want to go, that we try to hire the right person. So if
Yes.
you want to go up to bid, I think we should, you know, we should really try to do the best that we can to try to get somebody that, you know, has a lot of experience in this firm. There is a lot of, you know, there's a lot of details with that job,
Yeah.
especially when you think about the wide range that public works departments deal with. I mean, they're dealing with pulling boards out of dams to everything, you know, it runs the gamut, mowing
Putting
lawns.
banners up
banners.
on-
Yeah, putting banners up, fixing equipment.
Yeah,
There's just a lot of responsibilities there that. You're never gonna get somebody that knows everything, but you wanna try to grab somebody who, you know, obviously that knows the most. that
Yeah.
We can
If we just, so,
approve.
the route of, posting the position in a competitive way. Would that, in your estimation, blow up our, or put at risk our agreement with Winthrop for this position, or?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that, the town manager over there polled the council in an open meeting and they were receptive, meaning that a majority of them said they were interested in the agreement. They hadn't seen it yet. My understanding is either they met this week or their next meeting. I don't know when the next meeting is. They have an executive session
And meeting on the 18th.
and perhaps they'll talk about it there. That's all I know.
They are going into executive session for that.
Okay. So whether that frustrates anybody or not on their side, I don't know, but I'm just saying that, you know, those are the facts that I'm aware of.
I don't want to put your negotiated agreement at risk if we've got a 30-day out. I mean, I think if we post the position with a super competitive salary, we're sort of sending the message to this new person and the town of Winthrop that we don't have a whole lot of confidence in, you know, in the solution. If the reality is we've got a 30-day out, if for some reason we're not happy, we've got 30 days to post a position with a super competitive salary and do all the exploration. Seems to me like the agreement has a provision there to sort of protect the interests of the town so that we don't have a shortage. I don't want to set someone up for failure if we've got the ball rolling in the right direction for what seems to me to be an immediate solution with a super qualified person with lots of experience. So I would say maybe we can come back to the issue of posting the position at a later time if we're suddenly discovering that, you know, 55% of this candidate's time is not enough and that we're looking for something new.
I'll be interested to see how it works, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's definitely, I mean, I think I said recently, maybe you ought to think about out of the box, think out of the box. So this is an out of the box solution. And it may not work, but I think it's worth a try.
So you don't wanna do both?
You know, Doug, it seems to me like if we start the process of finding somebody else, that the other partners involved in this relationship are gonna say, oh, the handwriting's on the wall, this is just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
I think we need to give somebody a chance to move forward and make it work. But we've got 30 days, if either we're not happy or the, you know, for some reason Winthrop suddenly decides they're not happy, we've got 30 days to get it posted, find a competitive salary that we're happy to fund and work with it. I mean, that's part of the agreement. But I wouldn't want to blow it up. I mean, clearly Justin put some time into making this work and coming up with a solution that in pretty short order, we'd have an experienced person managing public works. So I make a motion, I don't know, do you need a motion to approve the
Yes.
agreement? So I make a motion that we approve the cooperative agreement for the DPW director position with the town of Winthrop.
I'll second it. I think it's only fair to give them a chance. Everyone, I'm always skeptical, but you don't know until you try.
Do we get Matt Burton to come to one of our meetings? Because I know his brother real well, but I don't know.
I can even do that first if you want, like,
We can table it tonight.
that's up to you, but I'm happy to invite him to your next meeting if he's available, like that's the week. Christmas is that Monday, but if he's available that week, I can ask him to come.
We're gonna do that.
Yeah, I can withdraw my motion. We can table this to another time. You okay with that?
Yep. I will withdraw my second.
Okay.
Yep, I will do that.
You got all that, Darcy?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is, to consider awarding the,
We didn't move to table.
No, I mean, well, I said and table it. So I make a motion, we table this till our next meeting.
okay, so,
And we need to
all
vote
those
on
in
that.
favor of the
Yeah.
table?
There you go. Joe, the parliamentarian.
We need him here. Next is to consider the awarding the box culvert bid for the Beaver Brook Dam stream crossing project.
So Pine Tree Engineering put this out to bid. These are, it was posted publicly, but these, all the vendors that were responded are ones that he reached out to directly that he's been using recently. The problem with these things is they have an 8 or 9 month lead time. So to be perfectly honest with you, we don't have enough money to do this project. Until if the voters were to give us more money at the next meeting, or if we get leads in the campground to give us the portion that we've also requested that I haven't heard back from. So if you approve this, we're gonna have a nice culvert, but if we don't get the rest of the money, we won't do the project, so we'll have a nice sort of looking garage structure up at the Public Works garage. But the problem is this takes 8 or 9 months to get, so if we don't approve it now, we would miss our window with the Army Corps, and our stream crossing grant will expire at the end of next year, so we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I don't know how else to do this for us to meet the timelines that we're
How
trying.
big is this box culvert?
It's big, it's a bridge, you could drive a car under it.
So they are gonna use it for parking.
Let's hope not. But I just wanted you to be aware of that when you vote on this, that there's some risk there. We do have the money to pay for the box culvert, we just don't have enough to do that in construction.
I assume these things must be spec'd out for.
Yes,
Is that the bid right there?
Yeah.
I'll see.
Okay.
so all 3 of the bidders are fine, so you can, according to the engineer, so
Well, I
you
know
can go with the
two of
lowest
them.
one.
I've never heard of Mishi concrete products, but heard of the other two. Not that I know.
Seems like the low bidder is gonna save us 30 grand over the high bidder. So I make a motion that we award the box culvert bid for the Beaver Brook Stream Crossing Project to Concrete Systems Incorporated in the amount of $111,000, $334.31.
I'll second that.
Did you get that, Darcy? You did, okay. So, Ken had motion and, Chris seconded it to, award for the box culvert, stream crossing to Concrete Systems. All those in favor? Thank you. And next is to, the fiscal year 2024 draft budget.
discussion. Should say 25, that's my typo. So you've all received copies and they were posted on the website of the operating budget. I'm happy to go through that in any amount of detail that you want. It is still very early, so the revenue side of this budget, like I mentioned in my memo, isn't complete. We just don't have the numbers for that yet. But I wanted to get this sort of early, mostly so that I can get, certainly I can answer any questions you have, but mostly to get a feel for what your priorities are when it comes to the capital plan. As you recall, last year, we didn't do anything because of the budget pressure, so we completely skipped a year. So a lot of those projects in the plan now are kind of piled up in 1 year, and staff kind of need some direction on what your priorities are, so that as we build out the rest of the budget, I know where you guys want to go with this, folks. But first, I guess I'll just go, if there's anything particular in the operating budget at this point you want me to cover, I will. But like I said, it's early. I've met with the department heads. I know basically what's in all of the departments that the town has is pretty accurate for what they're going to be asking for. What we don't know is we don't know the ones that are sort of out of our control, like the ambulance service, the fire hydrants, all of those. We don't have numbers for all of that, so it doesn't give you a full picture under each of those operating categories, because some of those items are quite large and I just don't have the numbers. But the capital budget is the one that I was hoping tonight that I could get some. And as you recall, with our budget process, we go through in detail each section on different nights throughout your process until you get to April. So you'll have a chance to, ask the police and fire chief and public works and all the details of what's in those budgets. But it's a starting place for you to look at for now.
And when do we have, I couldn't find my copy, I was searching for it when you told us. And I meant to email you, but I got distracted just about when we have to have that final, when the final thing has to be ready.
So the warrant, you have to sign it on April 3rd.
Okay,
So the public hearing is March 20th, which really means that you should have everything pretty much where you want it on the 6th of March,
okay,
so that the
Okay.
public has time to react to it
Okay.
in the public hearing
Yeah.
process.
Justin, I know you and I talked a little bit about the public safety building reserve, $50,000.
Yes,
And you had said that was gonna be to fund a study of what the needs are for the town. Is just a portion of that for that study? Or is that,
that would cover the study. I reached out to one of the architectural firms in Portland that does a lot of municipal buildings, and that was a back of the envelope kind of estimate for them. They thought it could be anywhere from 45 to 60, depending what we asked. So that should be a pretty decent number to get that done. The idea was that a few years ago, when this was created, the public safety building reserve had a plan to put 100,000 a year in there for a period of years to try to build something up. It's just not enough. It's never get to a point where there's going to be enough money saving it at that increment for it to make any real difference in the end. And we don't have a schematic plan or any type of feasibility study. So really, we're just kind of picking a number out of the sky without having professionals and the people that work at police, fire, whoever we might include in this building, participate in a process so that we might be able to get schematic plan or something that we can put a real budget on, that then those folks that want to move that project forward have something to advocate for. For example, fire turns out there wants to be a fire station, you'll have a report that kind of lays out what their needs are, and you give them an opportunity to present that to the public in some way that they want to do, and either get an up or down vote at some point in the future when you all thought that was the plan. So we kind of changed it from a savings account towards the construction to just trying to get something done. A plan, yeah, getting a plan. That was the idea.
and under bonded debt, the academy, it says bond, but I understood that it's not through the bond bank, it's through Androscoggin Bank, correct?
That loan is through Androscoggin Bank, but it is a bond.
Okay,
Yeah, which is the term for municipal loan.
Oh. Does it allow for early payback?
I would have to check
I
on
think
that one.
it Did I remember talking to Linda about that when we did this originally.
Most of the loans we get from them, they do allow it,
Okay.
so I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't have it in front of me. I can check on that.
So one thing I wanted to address is that the fact that, I'd like to put it out there that although we've been working very diligently on the academy project to raise, and do grants, and thank goodness for Steve Eldridge and his guidance and help with this. The one thing that as a group we've discussed is the fear that if we don't have the money, we're getting to the point where we have used that 1.5, and the fact that we had raised 60, at this point in time, 62,000 in donations and money, like Kennebec Savings gave 25,000 and things like that. To not have the building finished, and the interest that people have had in having the building finished to use for voting and events. And, you know, some of the things I noted for myself to remind myself is the fact that we can't use RSU2 buildings without filling out a form and asking permission to use a building and having a staff member from RSU2 there and present. So we pay $500,000 a month for buildings we can't set foot in without asking permission in a formal application. So we want to be able to, you know, get the building completed for use. And some of the things that we risk running into is if we don't finish it and there's a lag, we could lose our construction manager, because we don't have money, so there's nothing going on. We'd have to find a new construction manager, and the folks that we're working with are amazing, and they've gone above and beyond making things happen for us and doing costing. So what we as a group have asked the construction manager, Nickerson and O'Day, is to come up with a number to complete the project. And one of the things Steve is helping with is a grant loan opportunity, a 50-50 split with rural development. So if, say, we need, you know, obviously 600,000, we ask for 300 from the voters, and 300 would come in from that rural development. Steve is already talking with that person, so I wanted to put it out there that this is something that I'm interested in asking for on the warrant, to put it out there to raise the money to bring this project to completion so we can use it. Because I think it's worse to have a building that we didn't finish than have a building that we finished. So I just wanted to bring that out there, and I brought my support team with us tonight. So if we have questions for Dawn and Steve, and Steve has been invaluable, and to get his impression from his experience sitting on this side of the table. And we're putting grants out there. He's getting ready to send another one out right now, and we've got one out there that's being reviewed in the month of November, and then we'll be able to reapply to Stephen King in the new year, and Libra Foundation and Alfond is available anytime. So there's several places we're looking, but when I sat at these meetings and knew that our numbers were decreasing in what we had left. And from everybody that's worked in construction or doing things themselves, they know that the numbers that they put out there 5 years ago now, really, it all blew up. And if we only had the pricing that we had 5 years ago, we would be able to finish this. But because of COVID and pricing and cost, it's not going to get to the point where we have a certificate of occupancy with those numbers. So I just wanted to put that on your radar.
One of the things that I did was reached out to Mr. Nishu, who did the original analysis.
Yeah.
of the new presentation, to get his feel, because this is what he does. He still does that work for municipalities, education. And from our experience as subcontractors, we're seeing, depending upon the cost code of labor, materials, insurance, fuel, can range anywhere from 30 to 50% increase from when we received Mr. Nishu's numbers. So I reached out to him to find out, is what we are experiencing personally, is that reasonable to present here? And he said his average that he has seen in the work that he's done is at least 50%. Meaning that costs compared to when we got the numbers to now, it's about an average of 50%. So some depends on some types could be greater than 50, others could be less, but running an average about 50% more than what he had to work with 5 years ago. So again, I feel pretty confident, like Chris said, that if we had the pricing that we had at the time, the building, we would have received a certificate of occupancy. And I think we handled it as carefully as possible.
Yeah.
Given that situation.
Yeah, so wanted to put that on your radar, that we're working on those numbers, and I will be bringing those numbers and hopefully have your support to put it on the warrant to ask for whatever, Steve's working with. What's Jesse? Rural development.
In rural development.
Yeah,
We're also working with the state program, which federal funds through land, water, food. And that's a 25% match. They have quite a bit of money available to them, so we want to make sure we get on that. We have this grant here and the one that's out there, that's 75,000 we're asking for. We may not get the amount we asked for. So I guess hopefully get something. And then I got a bunch of other areas to look for. So hopefully by March, we might actually have more money.
and not have to ask for so much again from the voters.
That's the goal.
We want to
That's our
minimize.
goal, yes. So, but then the thing that I'll encourage is obviously whatever money we do get, if we do say up to this amount and we end up getting more in grants, we'll be able to put that money directly against these loans, not go through the bond bank, which you can't pay back sooner. So obviously we can put the money back against that. So we're not paying that interest on what we had asked for. So any thoughts or comments from my select board members?
You know my feelings, that would be, I'd like to see it. And I think, and see what kind of financing we can get from various sources that you're investigating.
I would love to see it completed also. But I sometimes struggle with the needs versus the wants. And I'm trying to justify the want, versus the need. Because there are a lot of things we need that we don't have funding for. And it's hard to ask the taxpayers for money, when we have needs that are not being met. So it's a struggle. I would love to see it completed, but I'm not sure what's gonna be fair for the taxpayers of the town.
Well, one of the things that the committee has worked very hard on is to focus on the needs, to make it a functioning property for the town. And that's one of text, I think, that we received from Nixon O'Day is they're being very careful about that. They're looking at what can be reused, what, not using temporary surfaces. Every dime that we put into the building has been to bring it that one dime closer to completion as opposed to just trying to get it done at any cost. And we agree, we feel the same way. We want it to be, if it wants to become more after, that's great, but to become a functioning building for the town to use has been our pinpoint of focus.
I mean, just on an aside, one of the things Dennis Price mentioned to me is he hosted a wedding here in this building, and the wedding was wonderful, but the logistics of having a reception here was really difficult because they were using like 3 different areas in the building and people walking and getting up onto the stage to dance, and just the logistics of that and the bad things that could have happened with people with food, drink, and dancing and multiple levels and stairs. Whereas if you did have a wedding here, you could go up to the academy and it's all on one level in a big open space, and it would be simple and easy. And, so the opportunities to have this used for multiple things and also provide valuable space for people to meet, share food, all of those things, because in Cumston, you can't have, yes, it'll be a catering kitchen, but I don't think we'll restrict Sterno in, the academy where they had to use like heating plates here, and it was just a whole several layers to get through to even use it, for that type of thing, so.
Make a comment. I've been here 34 years living in this town, and a lot of times I've heard people saying we have no place to meet. A community center. I know probably 20 years ago it was looked at by a group of people, but I still think the need is there. And you have you're trying to get the AARP elderly recognition here. But you don't have any place for the elderly. That's not going to be the only group. To me, we're doing, and there's no programs available to them. And you have a lot of youth who outside of the school don't have a place to go or to use. So there is a need, I think, from my perspective, for a building like this. And just my 2 cents. And hopefully we can raise enough money so to keep it off the taxpayers. Dying if we can. One of the things we are asking, and I know Kristen's done a lot of that, asking if we borrow money, and some groups we won't be able to pay it back as quickly if we have donations for that. But I'm not sure about the rural development. I'm thinking that probably won't be an issue because it's not issued like a bond, it's issued like a loan. But if we can get 50% of it for what our needs are, that's a pretty good match.
That's a great match. So we're developing those numbers with Nickerson and O'Day, and I will have more on this, but I wanted to put it on your radar that this is what we're thinking, and that's what my ask is going to be to consider. So just have a early information so I don't spring it on you on March 6th or something. So
Yeah, and just a heads up, because we don't pay for temporary services, et cetera, as they finish up what they can now, there won't be a lot of activity in the dead of winter. But it's taken care of, and they'll, we'll continue once weather turns to finish up with the budget that we have. And that should give us time to hopefully figure out how to continue.
You will have a pretty good idea of pretty close what will be needed to finish.
They're working, speaking with Steve Burton, that's what they're working on, is pulling those numbers together.
bring some numbers. We asked for that.
Did anyone ever put together an operating budget based on what the project is gonna be when it's finished? What an operating budget would be for a yearly basis moving
No,
forward?
but we can certainly request that. We can work with them to to see what we think will cost on an operation side, yeah. We work with.
Because the heating and all of that will be, obviously modern and efficient, and, we're not we're only heating the first floor, we're not really doing anything outside of
We've
that,
really
so.
focused on making it, as functional to use and as economical to use, minimize maintenance costs for future, things like that. Those are very much the focus that we've had on this, to make sure that we are, using whatever we can to make it as affordable to operate.
For as much as I love Cumston, we know that Cumston's maintenance, and you do, Mark, know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
difficult because of how the water runs off of it, the wood, the trim, all of that, but this building, in reading the bell tower, it is AZAC, and going forward, it's going to have a copper dome on it as opposed to the aluminum with 10 trillion nails in it that was leaking like a sieve. So, rebuilding things, we're rebuilding them using materials that are gonna last. And of course, that triple brick building has been there since 1856. So I don't think it's going anywhere, which is an amazing condition. They haven't had to repoint anything really. We just had to
Just
patch the
restore
holes.
the wings, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the amazing thing about that type of building. It's a far different scenario than Cumston with the amount of maintenance that Cumston uses, which I will always believe in because this building is irreplaceable as well. So,
And like you were saying about losing Nickerson O'Day, their attention to detail, if they could find a way to, the front porch, for example. They and the architect got together to make sure that we didn't have to completely, restore that, and making sure that the ground, is at a point where we don't have to change the
railing.
railing, et cetera.
Yeah,
They're using, whatever we can, whatever knowledge they have and opportunities that the building presents to minimize what we have to do.
like when we took down the suspended ceiling, the original ceiling was pristine, so we didn't have to do anything else to the original ceiling. That essentially it'll just need some mud and some paint. So,
So I think we had a real treasure
Yeah.
with the next O'Day group
Yeah.
that are taking care of us.
Yeah. They've been amazing to work with, so.
It appears quite a bit of the front porch and all that is gonna remain as wood.
Yes, basically, it's in good shape. They've replaced we have millwork replaced that needs to be replaced. But it's in good condition and just basically need to be repainted. I mean, that's what they're doing, is if there's anything salvageable, we're going with it. So their attention to detail, and I think that's the only thing that not concerns me. I mean, we can only do what we can do, but I would hate to lose the partner that we have to at least get it to certificate of occupancy, if there's any possible way. It's just, that's my.
What percentage are we completed here?
We have basically the exterior.
What percent, how much more?
Look. Currently, actually, let me see what the requisition that I have here. What we have, and again, not including phase 2, which would be primarily the interior, okay? We have through October 31. We have billed out 62% of the exterior, getting it to the point where all we have to do is finishes on the inside. So, and that's October. I haven't seen the November requisitions yet.
Still 100% left of interior left to do.
Yeah, the building is.
100% of interior left to do and 40% of exterior.
And, one thing, the catering kitchen, I haven't announced this to people and put names on it, but, the catering kitchen will be completely donated, either new or used equipment. So we have a pledge for the catering kitchen to be outfitted, which is like, $15,000 and $20,000, depending on what we end up having. So, there are things that we have, I mean, the big cost, obviously plumbing, to have the bathroom plumbed, and finish the plumbing but the maple floors in the library will be able to be sanded and used as is, once they are sanded. And then obviously sheetrock in there and trim and that type of thing.
I think Steve just reminded us, I think most of the interior framing.
Yes, it's done, yeah.
Done.
All of the framing interior is done. And if people wonder where this is, you can go on to a website that was created. And there's also a Facebook page that has some of those same photos. So restorema.org, and you can see pictures from every day. We get pictures every day from the construction company showing what they've done. And all those pictures have been loaded by month onto the website. So people can see what it looks like in there, because you can't go into, an active construction site very easily. But all of the information is on there with where the project is and what's been going on and the fun things that we found in there. And excited us to see it come to completion. So, but I would say that the interest at voting, when we had voting in November, that people want to be over there to use that building to vote. It will be a huge one-level space that will be easy to access, and the capacity to fit, a presidential election year. So, which I don't think that the admin building, it'll struggle to see that number of folks through there. So
Can you give the website again? The address?
restorema.org.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, does anybody else have any questions for me on that? But I wanted to get it out there. Because we've tried to be very out there and informative with where we are with this. So,
Can we get a tour?
yeah, right now the construction crew is not in there, so either in spring when they come back, or Steve Brown, who's on our board, I think he knows the combination
He does, yeah.
to get in. So if we organize something to start walking through there, we could organize, it would have to be daytime because there's not any light fixtures in there.
Mhm.
So, because we
Certainly,
didn't want to
Be
put up
happy-
pigtails.
happy to.
Yeah, we would love to have people to take a little tour through there, since it's not an active construction site, but pretty amazing, from the green carpet and the ugly library carpeting to what it is now with all those walls and the Mrs. Greenier's office
The
gone, how
windows and.
expansive that space is. So,
Pretty impressive.
Well, if you set something up for a tour,
Okay.
and I don't know if we can make it open to the select board or to anyone who wants to walk with us. Select board and guests, I'm happy to go to.
oh yeah, so we can look at something over the after the holidays to
Yeah.
try to set something up when it's, obviously it'll have to be when it's light out still. So, but
We talked with Paul and
yeah, our next meeting is like the 8th or something, so we can come up with a date and I can come back with a date on that. Okay.
yeah, we could probably have something set up for the next meeting here.
Yep.
Or do we want to try to set it up at our meeting? We can do it online. I can reach out to people.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe if we find out what works and when we can do that to have people through. Yeah. Do a
We'll have
little
that for you
email
for your
chain.
next-
Yeah, and then I can try to come back to you with a date. So,
Just remember, if 3 of you meet, I have to post it.
oh, yeah,
Just-
yeah.
just a-
Oh, yeah.
Just as a
Oh,
reminder.
yeah.
It's a meeting.
So, yeah. Yeah.
If there are, we want it to be manageable for all parties involved, but if there are people in the community who want to come take a look at
Yeah.
it because they feel They're interested. then I
Do
would
we
say
have to, we'll have to check with Paul on that, too. Again, we
Yeah.
can- I'm sure we can accommodate that.
We talked to Andrew about it at our
Yes,
last
And
meeting, so.
that would require kind of a pseudo certificate of occupancy. It can be issued for a couple of hours,
Yeah,
whatever. So we'll work through that process.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yep. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to ask about, under the bonded debt,
Sure.
the Wilson Pond culvert refinance, that's what we voted on.
Yeah,
Part of what we voted.
yep, it was refinanced downward. It was something that Linda did right before she left. She
Thank
ended up
you, Guy.
using,
Thank you.
she ended up using all the money and Andrew was nice enough to just refinance that without any cost and drop the payment. So that's why it says refinance. It's not if someone were to look that up, that payment amount wouldn't match anything that was approved at one point, but I mean, it's less than what was approved, so it's fine, but it just doesn't match up. So I just made sure I left a note on there that if someone would know.
And then under the proposed capital improvement plan, the public works salt shed. When would that,
So everything in green, everything underneath the green heading under the FY 25 is stuff that, according to this plan, is set to begin starting in the next budget. So let's just run hypothetical. You approve the salt shed. I haven't borrowed, I may have told some of you this that come to visit me. We haven't borrowed the money for the Cocknowagon, Woodbury Pond and the Beaver Brook amount. It's been approved to be borrowed, but I haven't borrowed it because we don't have enough to do the whole project. So one way or the other, I need to go back to the well somehow, either through leads and like I said before. So I haven't borrowed that money. They both have the same lifespan. They both have like the same, what would be a reasonable borrowing time frame of like 15 years. So if you decided to move forward with the salt shed at this point, I would put off borrowing for all that and I'd lump it all together so that we would just take one loan for all of those projects, because they all have a 20 plus year lifespan, 25, 30, so borrowing for that amount of time would. So that's why there's kind of there's that, it says estimate and then it shows a relative bond payment, and then the 87,000 next to Beaver Brook is what I think right now is what we need to complete that project that we don't have. So if you took the 87,000 plus the original Cocknowagon Beaver Woodbury is the name of the heading, you take that loan and then you were to add the public works salt shed, somewhere in there would give you an idea. That payment would be somewhere in the 125,000 a year mark. But those are just all options depending on what you approve and how I just move around the money to get the payments and the borrowing.
when would the salt shed be worked on?
If you put it in this budget, I would have the money to begin the project July 1 of next year would be when we could get the project moving.
So that would be another year before we would have a salt shed.
Yeah, I would think so. Probably by the time it was engineered, put out, it probably wouldn't start until, probably the following spring, to be honest. It'd probably be sometime 20, maybe 26, something like that at this point. I'm guessing, I don't know. Do you have any idea? These are laminated arch structures, so I assume there's some lead time on getting those things because they're quite large. So it just depends what you move forward with, I guess. But it does have to be engineered. I found the answer to your question. It was 100,000, like you said, but they recently changed the law that basically says anything has to be engineered unless you can get the engineer to say that it does not involve any risk to human life or safety. So pretty much means everything, I would assume. I think the engineering lobby.
You could find an engineer on
So pretty much anything of any size or significance, we're gonna have to have engineered at this point.
I did learn that there is a group from the Army Corps of Engineers that work on these types of.
I've heard that too, but they'll build it for you.
Right, they
Yeah.
don't supply materials, but they
Right.
will construct, and I don't know if it's these type of structures that they're willing to work on, but if we could get a labor, knock the labor cost off, that would be pretty significant, I would think.
Yeah.
A lot of times, that's about half the cost of the project is labor.
Yeah. And,
So-
yeah, they did that. Like the ball fields in Auburn, right, with the Army Corps of Engineers, did the one on the ball. field.
Yeah, there is I think one of the guys on the public works crew said they have a relative that's in the Augusta, who coordinates a lot of that work, and said that if the town reached out to them, that there was a possibility they would be able to do that.
I have a name of somebody, an email address and a phone number. I do have that. I don't wanna pursue it too much until I have some idea about what folks wanna do with that.
So, thank you for the spreadsheet. It helps kind of get us focused. I see, for example, the end year is fiscal year 2036. Do any of these line items extend beyond 2036? For example, are we still gonna be paying the former Academy Hall $1.5 million bond?
It's a 15-year,
I think it was 15.
so
Started
yeah,
in
so it'll go a little, this sheet does go longer on a few of these items. I just didn't include the second page.
Well, we voted on it in 2021.
Right, I think it might have been borrowed in 22, which means, or 23, but the payments usually aren't until the year after, so it's, the way it falls,
Yeah.
if you borrow
It
it,
might be a year or two.
Yeah. exactly,
It
but
might
yes,
be a
it does
year
go
too.
past there.
Okay. Um. Revaluation reserve under the proposed capital improvement plan. Is that the current revaluation, or is that a future revaluation that we're saving up for?
The 25,000 is for the current one,
Okay,
and then I just put a placeholder in there, so sometime 10, 15 years from now, you'd have money, but
we
certainly
have
you
a
could
reserve, we
choose
have a
not to do
savings
that.
account.
Yes, correct.
Which is totally
Yeah.
appropriate because it's a real cost and you can't swallow. It's much easier to swallow a snake than it is to swallow an elephant.
That's a good way to put it.
Police SUV
Go ahead.
3-year lease. Which vehicle is it that we're proposing to replace?
2016.
With how many miles on it?
Right now, I think we're up around 160 on it.
And then the plow truck that happens in 2026 preliminarily, which one is that we're?
It's to replace, so what's interesting was with the plow truck we just got, right? We bought it sort of during COVID, so the thing came 2 years after we ordered it, so we'd already made 2 of the 3-year payments on it. So we only have 1 year left to pay for it, and then we own it. So the idea on here was just to pick a vehicle, and this is a placeholder that when that lease falls off, it'll free up that money, and then if you wanted to move forward buying another one, it's just a way to sort of keep the cash flow even. So there's another large truck up there, I'm sorry, I don't know the names of it, but there's another one up there that's quite old, that could be replaced,
2006.
on that list.
So,
So you see up at the
Would that-
top, that
yeah.
there's one that currently exists for 56,000, so what I did is I put the 60 for
Yeah.
another one to start when that one falls out of the plan.
And where are we with that loader? I know we're leasing a loader now, so where does that fall into this whole
So
scheme?
it's a discussion to have, it's not on here right now, you'll see it's not on here.
Mhm.
We're putting about 15,000 into it to make it operational, and we're spending almost 1,000 to rent the one that we have to have in case it snows, basically. We think it's certainly, older, and it needs to be seriously considered about here sometime in the near future, probably replacing that. One of the concerns, right now is, again, we can't buy anything that's modern right now in that same size range, probably won't fit in our current salt shed. I guess right now there's only 3 or 4 inches above the roof when it drives in, so we may want to stretch this one out, because everything has gotten bigger, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's car has gotten bigger, everything's larger. So the concern was if we bought something new right now, that we may end up in a situation where it doesn't fit.
Doesn't it? Yes, 'cause my father had a barn, with a new tractor, and the big thing was, how tall is the tractor that I wanna buy? Well, it won't fit in the barn, so I guess I can't buy that
Right.
one.
So one of the ideas was, if you kind of committed to doing the salt shed, we kind of open up
Yeah,
what our possibilities were on replacing that loader. We wouldn't have to worry so much about what we bought.
I think we really should put a line in there to put some money in an account to start that.
Sure, yeah,
We had a discussion last year about putting some money in an account for, to start saving for it, because it's a lot easier to buy it when you have the money.
Yeah.
Than to borrow the money and pay the interest on it.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money in interest paying for things that we've had for 5 years. It's a lot easier to save the money,
In this economy, sure.
save the money, and then when you need it, you have the money to buy it.
Yeah.
And we know that the lifespan on that thing is not gonna be, we're not gonna get another 10 years out of it.
No.
But if we start budgeting something now,
What's the loader cost?
250, 275, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
But we probably would have an idea of what our salt shed's gonna be when it comes time to buy one. But at least we have some money set aside. If we start saving 30 or 40,000 or something a year for the next 2 or 3 years.
3 years, it'll be 300,000.
Mm.
Yeah.
So under TIF expenditures. These aren't proposed, these are real costs.
The Maple Main and Beach, right, has been done, so
Yeah.
we pay those debt payments out of the TIF, so it subtracts, if you look at the bottom, it shows the general fund total is less than the total for our debt service payments, and that's taking into account that the TIF is paying a portion of that, not the general fund all. That's what that was. So the Main Street one, I just keep pushing it further out, because it's, originally it was 25, they'll do it, and now we're kind of guessing maybe it'll be 26, so.
And the
that's
figure
all.
you have in for Main Street sidewalks, 50,588,
That was an estimate that Linda had put on there back then, and I haven't done anything with it, because we haven't met with DOT or anything like, I don't know where she got the number for, but it was a placeholder, I think. I don't think it's a real number.
presuming a certain total cost that we spread out over a 10-year period or something.
Correct, something like that, yeah.
Which we may or may not, that might actually not be a real number, because we've been accumulating
Correct.
money in TIF accounts for quite some time, so.
Correct.
And putting into the line from the tip. into
Right, the
line for
streetscape.
The streetscape, so.
Correct.
So then we should take that one with a grain of
It's
salt.
not a very accurate guesstimate is what I'm saying, but it's to indicate there'll be something that has to happen there.
Be another grain of salt for the salt shed.
Yeah. So the paving, we had been kind of talking, last year and the year before of a standard 250 as kind of the floor, and you can see I put it to 200, but the 200 is just it's a function of, as we're going through the budget, department heads putting other things that they think are, and I just keep removing it out of the paving line. So there's no real number for that, other than I'm just trying to keep it within sort of those totals at the bottom. That's kind of less than $1 million. So that's kind of the way I'm working, but, certainly these are all choices for you about what you want to fund at what time, but that's why that number just keeps going down. Because every time something new comes, I take it out of the paving.
We'll be down to 0.
So that number doesn't really reflect anything. The roads that are kind of on the list, I think it would be in your reserve account line here, but the roads that were on the plan from last year that weren't funded was all or some part of Wilson Pond Road, the Town Farm Road, Blaisdell, and then it had Oak Hill Acres and Bonin Road on there. We clearly wouldn't be able to do all of those under any scenario, but Lori and I kind of measured out Wilson Pond, Town Farm, and Blaisdell, and it comes in to be kind of similar to the mileage we did last time. So there's kind of some ways to play. We don't really know what the costs are, but if we had some idea what you were putting there for a budget, we'd go out or hopefully get them into next year's paving plan. So as we move through the budget, if you kind of say, oh, we're gonna put 250, then I'll go get numbers for what we think we can do for 250 and then try to bid that out. different
Yeah,
roads you
my-
wanna put forward, that's fine too, but those are the ones that were on the plan for.
My sense is, at this point, the cost of asphalt come spring is gonna be fairly reasonable compared to where it was last spring. And if there were a place where we should be more generous while we've got sunshine, I'm thinking it might be paving. Simply because, I mean, we can't continue to defer paving. That's a death spiral waiting to happen. And we did, last year we did the paving that we were supposed to do a year ago. So I would suggest that we put this back to 250. And if there are other needs that come forward, resist the temptation, to take it out of the paving budget.
So this is why we're kind of here tonight. I kind of need to get some shaking heads on which items in here are kind of, we want to keep them on the table at this juncture, just to have some idea about, where it is you want to go with some of these items. And I know it's still early. We don't know what the revenue looks like, but if you kind of indicate which ones on there that you think are the most important. I'm not saying you're taking the other ones off, but I'm just saying we'll work to make sure that we have really good numbers for those, so that I know that those are the ones that you're putting priority. And then the department heads will know too, that those are the ones of priority, and they may have other plans in their own budget plan they might put forward versus something else.
Beyond what they've already proposed.
Yeah, or they may withdraw something knowing that they're gonna lose something based on some of your feedback, and they may pick, say somebody has two things, they may say, I'll do one because I don't think I'm gonna get both, and I might get nothing. So, right, I mean, that's all.
So the other, before we start, figuring out what trade-offs we've got in terms of long-term capital expenditures. One figure I think that would be super helpful to have is our best estimate for what the undesignated fund balance is and where we stand on that. I know we've made a number of commitments. I know that our auditors only go up to the year before last in terms of, a hard and fast number. But I also know that the accountant should be able to tell us, based on the decisions we've made up to this point preliminarily, what our undesignated fund balance is. And if you want to tell us, okay, it's this number plus or minus $20,000, then that's fine. Give us a range, because you're not certain about certain items, right?
We need that from our KO, from our auditor,
Uh,
or from.
well,
Sort of a combination.
yeah, we get it in combination, but if it turns out we've been running a deficit the previous years that have yet to be audited, then our undesignated fund balance is going to be negatively impacted by that. If it turns out that we preliminarily think it's a surplus, then that gives us a little more confidence in making investments that are long-term investments.
Right, the biggest thing with our fund balance right now is over the last two budget cycles, we pulled out almost 1.3 million out of the fund balance.
Exactly.
So we sit on about $3 million worth of cash generally at any given time.
Yep.
And I completely understand what you're saying, but at some point, we may want to more realistically plan on what it costs to run the town without taking those reserves to make these types of investments.
Well,
That's all I'm saying, but we'll get you the numbers.
Absolutely.
Just-
We can't make a decision, we can't make choices from a finite list without understanding like how much is actually in our wallet.
Yeah.
And if we're running really close to our cash flow position, then we're gonna be a lot more judicious about making these choices. And then maybe some of our needs are actually just, we're gonna call them wants and call it good. On the other hand, in the first year of my term, this was when we had Linda Cohen as town manager, the auditor came to us and said, you guys have too much money in your fund balance. And we're looking at him like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you guys have way too much, most municipalities don't have this much cash sitting, doing nothing. In your undesignated fund balance. And that was the year that we're only spending $125,000 on paving. And I'm like, why are we sitting on a pile of cash but not paving roads? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. On the other hand, we've got to be fiscally responsible and judicious about it and understand that, we need to make sure that the town has its cash resources to function in a reasonable way. So Justin, if you could get us the best estimate on where we are with the undesignated fund balance as of the end of our last fiscal year. And if you want to give us an error range,
It'll probably, just to be honest, because it's so far out, it'll probably be in the range of several hundred thousand, maybe 300, 400,000 will be the guess, because they just don't have any idea what the year-end balance will be for the one that we just completed, because they haven't started doing anything with it yet. So until they get the 22, it's easier to estimate 1 year back because you know what that one would be in 22. They'd be able to guesstimate on 23, but right now they don't have an end date for 22, so they're relying on a real number of 21 and then guessing 22, 23 to get us to where we are now. So just as long as you are aware of that, when I get it, it'll be kind of a bigger range than 50,000 or something like that. It'll be a big number.
So it's really not gonna tell you anything.
No, it'll give you a better idea than not knowing anything at all. I'm just telling you, there's gonna be a range with that number.
I understand, but a range that's like $300,000 doesn't really, that's not helpful. I mean,
Well, I'll see what I can do, but I cannot create these numbers. There is no way. I'm not qualified. Mark is gonna give you an estimate and he's gonna write probably a paragraph that says, I want you all to make sure that I'm
Sure.
making,
big
big assumptions here.
we
for you to
know-
get that number.
Then here's the format I would
Sure.
request.
Yeah.
Give us the fund balance at the end of 2021. That's been audited, correct?
Right, that's in the audit book that you.
Okay, so give us a fund balance at the end of 2021. Give us every voter approved expenditure from the fund balance since that time. And then give us the preliminary surplus or deficit for each year, 2022 and 2023, years ending in 2022, 2023. Preliminary surplus or deficit. Seems to me like that's pretty simple, because when it's a surplus, we're adding to the fund balance, deficit, we're not. And I understand this is preliminary, but it's what we got. And we don't seem to be able to get an auditor to get us caught up for the year that we're missing, or that has yet to enter the pipeline. And so those are pretty significant. If you could make sure these are in the minutes so that it's exactly what I just said, then that seems to me like reasonable data to make a financial decision. And that will sort of enlighten us as to, some of these proposed capital improvements. Some of them are in the range of, $200,000 of paving or not, but some of them are very small, $36,000 for the Cumston Hall Energy Efficiency Project. Okay, $36,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of $1 million fund balance or a $2 million fund balance, $36,000 is not going to make or break cash flow.
You want to hear more?
I would, but I don't think I'm gonna get any more, so we'll wait till we get the fund balance, because that's what I'm hearing, you want that number first, so we'll just, that's fine, it's your process. So we will do that.
What
So other-
more would you want?
Just whether there are, like tonight, Chris brought in that she's likely gonna come back with another ask, so there probably should be at least an indication of a line on there that, you know, there may be some we don't know what that number is, but it should be indicated in there that there may be something in there, like right now on that plan, you'll see under the transfer station reserve, there's a blank because I don't know, what that number is. They're supposed to get it to me sometime in February, and that was Dan and I met with an engineering firm that does transfer station studies. I don't have that number yet, so I made a place on there for that. And just if there's anything else that you all have in your world of priorities that aren't on the list, that would be helpful, just to know that there may be another borrowing cost or something that I should make estimates for, so you have a full picture of what you want. If there isn't anything else, that's fine too.
We've already put the money forward essentially for the Compton Hall project, because that was the money we voted to essentially have trains start working on it to get us in the queue, correct?
Right, we paid some of that initial cost in that, up to a certain amount for them to start the engineering so they could meet our timeline of this fall doing the project in October.
You know, that's a project that will definitely save money in the end. Yes, you spend money, but we'll save money because it's going to really dial in this building to be able to be more efficiently heated and cooled.
So when you look above that too, there was Dennis for the last couple of years has been asking for a Compton Hall reserve account that he could either have, somewhere between 20 and 50,000 in that when something like the railings out front need to be done or the annex needs to be painted, something like that, he'd have a little pot of money that he can kind of manage over here. And one way to fund that would be to use the $80,000 to $90,000 energy rebate that we're going to get if you move forward with the HVAC improvements, because that money will come in after we have to sign the paperwork to do the lease. So we can't use it to offset that cost, but we could use it to fund something like that, so we wouldn't have to raise taxes to do it. So that was just an idea, but there's probably more there than we need, because there's like 90,000 in there, so there's a potential you could use, whatever portion you could put into the Compton Reserve, and then you could put the rest of it into somewhere else.
Yeah.
Wherever you thought was useful.
I'm assuming that would have to be a question that's put out to voters to approve. Are you in favor of putting this money into
Yes,
an account?
that's correct, because it's not considered a grant, so you don't have the authorities. We'd have to say, if we did the HVAC project, we would have to authorize that lease cost, and then we would say that we estimate, 90,000 in rebates will come to the town. Do you authorize the town to appropriate those to X, Y, Z? So we need a vote for that, yes.
The nice thing about it isn't, like this building always needs some little project.
$50,000 is the drop in the bucket compared to what this place is gonna need over the next 20 years. There's so much wood on the front of this building that has been caulked and painted and caulked and painted, and a lot of it's gonna need to be replaced at some point. And it's gonna be a very pricey. The original cost of the building will probably be exceeded in redoing the front. It's just so detailed and tedious work that it's all gonna be duplicated, and my hope would be that it could be duplicated out of something that will last.
Like you did with the railing and the flower box thing, using AZAC and
Yep.
the AZAC shingles and that
Yep.
type of thing.
We can't just vinyl siding.
There may be several people that would frown on that.
Two of them might be sitting right here.
That story.
Yes, you can't. You have to That's very
It's okay, I
particular.
was kidding.
It only costs 20,000.
40,000,
20.
20,
oh, 20, for the whole building.
yeah.
Yeah.
In 1899, so.
Today's carpenters have screamed it on.
I know.
Based on what Don's estimate was, I'm grossly undercharged. If everything is up 50% in 5 years, wow.
Yeah, labor costs is just crazy. For the, company to pay the laborers.
Before you jack the price up, Mark, it's more.
Yeah.
That's what I'm something.
It's like, something's gonna go. Just pay them, we're good. For sure.
Should we move on to,
Yes,
Yeah. So, now to authorize the Conshohocken Travelers to use town van for snowmobiling.
I make a motion, we authorize the Cottonwagon Trailblazers to use town land for snowmobiling.
So there's a motion by Chris, second by Janet to authorize the Conshohocken Trailblazers to use the town land for snowmobiling.
Yeah.
That's up at the town office.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
I'll take this hat off and say thank you very much. But if you didn't, you couldn't cross any road in the town of Monmouth, you could go on the right of way.
We've got you right where we want you.
Yeah, exactly. Me too, down at my house.
Now we want to consider a catering application from Kushnock Brewing.
Which you've already, yeah.
Retroactively.
Correct.
I make a motion, we approve the catering application for Kushnock Brew.
Second.
So the motion by Ken, second by Mark to approve the catering application from Kushnock Brewing. All those in favor? Next is to consider, and Chris has to leave, I think.
Yes, I will.
To consider an online liquor license for TJ's Pizzeria.
I will recuse myself. from-
You said online, I'm
Online,
assuming
but
you
it's
meant
on
on
premise.
premise.
Yeah.
Although you could do drinking on
Let's do it online.
Over Zoom.
that.
On premise.
Only thing I questioned about this application was it does say in there that they are requesting to serve alcohol in the kitchen, which seems very odd.
Is this the TJ's?
Yeah, it does ask for a list of places that it would be served. And it says the dining area and the kitchen area.
Is there some function that they have? when-
I'm sure there are places of employment where alcohol is needed in the work area. I didn't think this would be one of them.
So is this a yearly application?
It is, yeah.
Yes.
That's an annual thing.
Well, I move we grant the license to TJ's Pizzeria.
I'll second.
So is the motion by Joe. Yeah, the dining area. and the kitchen area.
Before we vote, Mr. Chair, can I police chief if there's been any significant changes in the past year?
There has no.
And if there is an unusual amount of calls to the kitchen. Okay, you will let us know.
So there's a motion by.
Joe.
Oh, yes, Joe, second by
Yeah.
to approve the DJ's Pizzeria application. No, sorry, to consider online premise liquor license for TJ's. All those in favor? And Chris says
I'm refusing.
recuse yourself. Next is Warren. Number 11 and 12 for fiscal year 23-24.
Okay, let's start with 11. Admiral Fire and Safety, 1,224. Clothing for the police department, right? Maple, Angoscoggin Bank, this is the debt service for the sidewalks, $41,225. Blue Rock Earthworks Materials Transport, 2,970. Calderwood Engineering, the final payment to them for the Cocknoagan Dam project, $9,370. CH Stevens, $38,850, winter salt. Cobussy Watershed District, second assessment, $18,564. Dennis K. Burke, diesel and gasoline, $5,036. Fabian Oil, municipal building heating fuel, $1,445. Friends of the Cobussy Watershed, $7,500, annual payment. Grimmel Industries, demo removal, $5,752. High Grade Business Group, tax bills, $1,060. Kennebec County, $543,766. Lower Shell Consulting, $1,000. Eco Devo Consulting. Main Commercial Tire, Tire Maintenance Public Works, $1,033. New England Salt Company, salt, $3,636. Northeast Energy Apparatus, miscellaneous things done to the fire trucks, $3,361. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $7,361. For a total of $708,635. Here, it's gonna be much longer.
That was warrant 11.
That was the one that was 2 weeks ago, correct?
Correct.
Which we signed online already.
Legion's Trucks, Public Works, tank, air pressure tanks, $1,081. Androscoggin Bank, $127,053, service payments. Kirk Bachman Educational Incentive Reimbursement, $1,500. Blue Rock Earthworks, Materials Transport, $1,866. Eco Maine tipping fees, $2,265. Fabian Oil propane, $2,192. Maine Equalization Consultant, the assessor, $2,437. Maine Technology Group, IT Services, $2,065. The total is $3,474. Monmouth Sanitary District, $4,740. Livia Mora Educational Incentive, $1,500. The Mosca Design, the banners, $2,297. Nickerson and O'Day, Monmouth Academy renovations, $88,974. Then another one for $91,897. Paul's Design Project, the architect for that project, $2,115. Warrior Advisors accounting firm, $6,948. RSU number 247,872. RKO, our auditor, $18,800. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $961. State of Maine Bureau of Vehicles again, $7,021. For a total of $637,508.99.
Make a motion, we approve, warrant number 11 and warrant number 12 for fiscal year 2023-24.
I'll second that.
So there's a motion by Ken, second by Chris to approve the warrant 11 and 12 for fiscal year 23-24. All those in favor? Thank you.
You know why the warrant, you know why the amount of RSU was half of what we normally pay?
I saw that. I don't know. I have to check. Those warrant, payments come directly from Mark. I don't have to process those. I'll have to ask him. I saw that too when it came
Yeah,
through.
that
I don't
doesn't
know.
make sense,
I'll look.
because next time it'll be 750.
Right. It could have been a typo. I'll check on it. I saw that too when it came.
Before we move on to the next item, another accounting question. Justin, you were gonna look up the Eco Maine data that they have not yet produced. Did you have a chance
You
to?
want, I got the invoices here or just
Yeah.
a spreadsheet I need for you too, whichever you want.
Just
Yeah.
a number. I see in the budget, we have tipping fees. For like $67,000.
So like Eco Maine, we don't know like what we're gonna get for revenue from year to year, depending on what they sell.
Right.
So we kind of build in a number in there to kind of offset that.
Yeah.
That total amount, so.
So.
That's like a year and a half worth of.
Right,
invoices.
so for a year, we're looking at about $2,000 a month. Ish,
Yeah, that's pretty,
it's kind of the scale.
yeah, it's right in there, yeah.
Okay, and then for materials transport to Eco,
Mhm.
any sense of,
Yeah, we just did some of the, so like, it's pretty typical that we're paying, anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a warrant, so maybe $4,000 a month, something like
so
that.
transportation is more than what we're paying Eco.
Yes, and like we found out that our Grimmel, our demo, we just got a notice of increase for next year of things like $10 a ton or something for that, so that'll be significant, which is not built into that budget. That's the demo stuff that goes to Grimmel.
Okay, so
That's a different topic.
4,000 a month in transportation costs in total. Or
That's
just for
true, I
Eco
mean-
Maine?
Let me just bring up this other warrant here, because this will give you an idea, because there's one here for.
Well, if you recall, we had a gentleman from Eco Maine about a month ago.
Right.
Who made the presentation to us and essentially said, we're not really keeping track of the quality of recycling that you're sending to us. 11% of it actually gets burned anyway because it's waste. And recycling is better because it's higher on the list than burning it for waste, which is lower on the list that they use for the hierarchy of how they want to dispose of it. We're spending $2,000 a month with Eco Maine to truck what it is that folks are putting into the dumpster, the recycling dumpster, which requires a person to actually monitor it. And requires a truck to the Portland rather than to Auburn. And requires a separate dumpster, which is close to the end of its life. I mean, that trash compactor is like 20-something years old. It's, someone had to come in this weekend to get it going because it was cantankerous. So someone was in on overtime to get it to work. So there's a lot of, we're spending a lot of money to recycle. And the tonnage that we are paying Eco Maine is currently $108 to send them recycling. When we send it to Auburn, what are we currently paying, Justin?
I think it's like 46, 48, somewhere in there, I
Right,
think.
so it's like, it's 40%-ish of what we're paying to Eco Maine. So the question is, we're clearly paying more to recycle than to actually just turn the waste into energy. And we know it's more, but the question is how much more? And if we decided we didn't want to do that, how much would that save? Right? There's a capital cost. We wouldn't have to replace the trash compactor. There's a labor cost. We don't have to have an extra person watching the quality of recycling that goes in. I made a boo-boo at the transfer station today, got people really upset. And we'd save on transportation costs and, you know, the diesel that they burn to send it to Portland instead of to Auburn. And we'd save on the tonnage cost. The price per ton would go down from 108 to 40 something. So question would be, how much does that save? And when you come up with a preliminary number, then you can say, okay, well, this is what it's costing us to do the right thing. If that's really what we want to do.
And I think if we got rid of EcoMaine and went to all going to Auburn, we would probably need a second. Cause you figure if it's not going in recycling, it's gonna go in the hopper. So we'll probably end up needing a second trailer maybe. I don't know how much they generate, but you're gonna increase what's going into the hopper to go get incinerated.
More often.
It would
Or
be a
more
lot
often, you know,
than a few
however
months.
it happens.
Sure,
So,
Right.
exactly.
And maybe we wouldn't need to replace, I mean, there are a number of, I mean, I don't know how many trailers they got down there, the trash compacted trailers. But maybe we don't need as many. The potential is, maybe we could downsize the number of trailers they've got. I don't know, I'm not the expert here, but.
Yeah.
Is it possible that we could figure out how many trips we're making to Portland?
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, I just have to pull some invoices to get a good handle on it, but like for this one here, this is the bill for the November 29th warrant, so on this one here, it says 6 Auburn trips, 3 Portland trips, $2,970. So we can figure this out, it's broken out that way, so
Okay.
we just have to pull those invoices and look at
Okay.
the amount. Because those are usually handled by Public Works, so I'll have to dig those out and then, just do like I did on that spreadsheet there, I'll just add more columns.
I mean, if it's pennies, we probably don't care, but if it's, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, that would be a significant issue in my book. And, yeah.
Sure it is.
Mm.
It's expensive to save the planet.
Around on it.
Well,
Exactly.
there's lots of ways we can save the planet. One of them would
Does not
be,
make
you know,
sense to.
not
have
burning
recycling,
diesel more than we
burning
have
diesel
to.
going to Portland for oil. You know,
or spending 108 per ton versus 40.
I was down there, I don't know if it was like the week before, but they said everything's in the hopper today.
Yeah.
Nothing in the recycling, everything was in the hopper.
Is that because the compactor wasn't working?
I don't know.
Yeah. compactor
It was
wasn't working.
full. It was full.
Oh, it was full, okay. Well, and you know, I mean, even EcoMaine doesn't bother to check how
clean and
Uh,
streamlined.
how clean the street is, right? Like, that's not even for them cost effective.
It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense at all, so.
All right, well, if, Justin, if you could get your head around exactly how much extra EcoMaine is costing us in a, you know, an annual process, then maybe we can schedule a time to have an, you know, an agenda item, maybe with a new public works director helping us understand all of the nuances of all of it.
I wonder what they're doing with
Yeah.
them. Do they have an EcoMaine?
I don't know. There might be an opportunity to.
Yeah.
I think they
One trip owns their own truck.
own their own trucks, they haul their own trash.
Huh.
They have a brand new truck.
What are we beholden to for EcoMaine? If we wanted to say, we're not gonna use you anymore, do we have, what's the contract with them?
I don't know, because we're not an owner, but we're considered a member, so I have to see what that means.
Yeah, and that piece of information would be good if we were gonna pull the plug, but we needed to give them 60, 90 days or whatever, you know, what we're
fine.
beholden to them for,
That's
so.
fine, yeah.
And I guess the only other thing is when we get to, the only thing I didn't bring up when we're looking at budgets, I'm gonna backtrack, is the whole, our reconstituted plan for rec.
Okay, yeah, so you'll see there's a question in there because you'll see the budget is significantly down.
Yes.
And that's a conversation that we can have.
Yeah,
when we-
so
when
I
we
just
get there.
want, you
Yeah.
know. I don't think you're following that, yeah. Yeah.
Why is it down?
Because the way the budget is right now, I've eliminated all the lifeguards, which is about 60,000 of a rec budget of 120. So I've cut it in half, but you have to decide what to do with the lifeguard. That's why it's that much lower,
Yeah.
because they're not in there right now.
Yeah. Some of them are not in there yet. We're not gonna not have lifeguards, are we?
I have no idea. I'm just saying that they're not in there. There's no money for them in there right now at all.
Yeah.
So that's why that number looks significantly lower.
Exactly. Wild West, like we said. Anything goes.
Yeah, those kids made really good money. I remember signing the payroll warrants. It's like, that's a darn good summer job right there.
I mean, it's one thing to have swimming, but it's another thing to have lifeguards until dark, when it doesn't get dark till 8 o'clock, you know, where do you draw the line?
Now, you might have more because they need an attendant at the entrance, checking people coming through, so that's another person that we never needed before. And
So, cause that
Oh.
question has to be drafted actually too.
Yeah, that was another thought. I
Yeah.
think Chris just had the same.
Yeah, I think I've already put it on
Drafting
my,
a
on my
question.
warrant, because I put things on that warrant
Yeah.
but I think it's on there, but let me write it here just in case I forgot.
Drafting a question that would authorize the select board to charge
Well,
non-residents.
no, whether or not we're going to allow residents to use the
Non-residents.
non-residents to use the beach, and if we do you allow us to charge a fee?
Right.
That question.
What is our status quo on that? How did we leave it at the end of the year? We were allowing residents,
Well,
we were allowing anybody, pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
with no charge.
Yeah.
We need a special session.
To decide the lifeguard issue?
No, it was on here if needed.
Oh, no, you do not. No.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask, was that labor question settled?
It is settled as far as the, our employee and myself in the town, I think, where I have not gotten a signed copy of it back from the union itself. So I can't put it for you to ratify until they give it back.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten that back
Who
yet.
is waiting to the table? All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.